Hello and welcome back to the Frugal Granny channel. My name's Ali and I'm Frugal Granny. I'm a 64 and 3/4 year old semi-retiree and I am documenting my retirement journey, which started in April when I handed in my resignation to my office job and will probably continue for the next 2 years until I get my state pension at the end of July in 2027. Anyway, thank you very much if you're a returning viewer. It's lovely to see you. And you're also very welcome if you're a new viewer. I will put a link up here to my first video, which is Hello, I'm Frugal Granny UK, so that you can find out a little bit more about me and if you want to hang around. So today is Coffee and Catch Up 14, I believe, which means we've been having these catch-ups for 14 weeks now. Now, it seems to me that the Thursdays are turning mainly into financial catch-ups. And over the last few weeks, I've been keeping you updated on the progress of getting the annuity from my office job. Last week, I reported that the annuity was now live and that I'd been paid for July in arrears and that I would get the payment for August in arrears on September the 1st. I also told you that the insurance company that's providing that annuity had got my gender wrong on the policy, and I rang up to speak to them to get that changed. Thankfully, it hasn't affected the amount of money that I'm going to be getting. But what I can report now is that the new policy has arrived. So when I've got a bit of time, hopefully tomorrow, I can sort through all that paperwork and file it in my filing cabinet and cross that off the list. So that's a really big relief. But from day of resignation to time of receiving the annuity has been 5 months. And the reason for that was my employer could not give the annuity administrator confirmation of the final value of my pension fund until I had had my final payslip at the end of June. So although I gave 3 months notice to retire, that 3 months is notional in a sense. I'm sure they were doing things at the employer end, but the actual arrangement, the financial arrangements for the annuity couldn't start until the 30th of June. And so that process itself took 2 months. And I think it's come out quite clearly in the comments from various viewers that although some people have had very efficient experiences with getting their annuity, especially from the civil service and claiming the state pension, other people have found that their pension providers have taken quite a long time. All I would say about that to people who are planning retirement, thinking about retirement, is cater for that financially. If I had retired in 2 years' time, which had been my initial plan A, I would have built up a 3 to 4 month living expenses buffer fund that would have carried me through those bumpy 3 to 5 months while the annuities were being sorted out and coming into payment. But as those of you who've been with me for a while know, I made a very rash and sudden decision to retire early. And so that the buffer fund that I had wanted to get me through the retiring transition period was not in place. That really had been my intention to do that in the autumn and of this year and the spring of next year. But obviously that isn't now going to happen, and that's why I'm here on YouTube talking about the challenges that I'm facing of an unexpected early retirement. But anyway, good news, the paperwork's through and I can file all that now and tick it off the list. There's also been some discussion about how my P45 from the office job will affect the part-time supermarket job that I am currently employed to do. My accountant has now spoken to HMRC and it's obviously had some effect because you won't believe it. This week I have had 2 separate coding notices from them. The first one has said that the supermarket job will now be considered as my main job, and the personal allowance will be applied to that job, and that my 2 annuities that I was already claiming when my accountant spoke to HMRC at that time, they will be taxed at 20%. Now obviously my 3rd annuity, the office job annuity, the providers then said they would be speaking to HMRC about that one, and that's when I've got the 2nd coding letter, and that's got a slightly different code against it, and it says that that will be taxed at 20%, and then there's an extra little letter next to the code, BRX, and that X basically means that they will reconcile any discrepancies at the end of the tax year. I sort of got the impression when I read that 2nd coding letter that HMRC have had enough of me now. Too many annuities, too many changes, too many job changes. We'll sort you out at the end of the year. So that's where we are now with that. I've got a new code for my supermarket job as well. That's now also got an X at the end of it, so they're going to review any discrepancies, tax discrepancies with my supermarket job at the end of the year as well. It will all get sorted out once we get into the beginning of the new tax year, and I can send all my figures to my accountant. I did also say that I was going to report back every week on how I spend my £45 a week food and consumables allowance that I've allowed myself. And as I said before, I'm very, very aware that I could not shop from scratch on £45 a week, but I am intending to live off and eat down my freezers and my pantry as we go forward into the rest of the summer and the autumn. So we're now in week 2 of August, and let me just say what I've bought so far. Yep, I bought another Bounty bar while I was on shift. That was 94p, including staff discount. Then I actually did a bit of shopping, which you saw in what I've now called the Monday magazine that I posted on Monday. That shopping trip cost £22.21. I haven't got the savings with me at the moment because those receipts are downstairs on the kitchen side. I then bought myself a bottle of wine, which was £3.53, and that included a saving of 62p. I also bought a loaf of bread for £1.11. That included, I think that was £1.30, and the £1.11 was the staff discount price. And then I was very lucky and I found a 2 kilogram bag of chicken drumsticks and a 1 kilogram bag of chicken legs on the yellow label counter, and I bought those, and after staff discount that was £4.97. I've put the chicken drumsticks in the freezer and I've boiled the chicken legs for Kitty's dinners, and I take the skin off and I take the bones out. I put the meat in a plastic box for her in the fridge, making very, very sure that I've removed the pin bones that run along the leg bone of a chicken, because the last thing I want is for her to get one of those in her mouth and that to cause her an injury. Then the shopping trip that I did at the weekend, I picked up bicarbonate of soda instead of baking powder, so I took those 2 tubs back, swapped them for 3 tubs of baking powder because the baking powder was more expensive per unit, so I spent an extra 34p there. And then I don't know what's got into me, but I've lost 2 things this week, and one of them is actually Kitty's lead. I took her to the park, put her on her extending lead, and put her normal walking lead into her buggy, and by the time we got back to the car, the walking lead was not there. And honestly, I really did not have the time or the energy to repeat the walk to look for where I dropped the lead, and so I've had to order her another one, and the cheapest one I could find was £4.39, £4.39 on Amazon, and that one should be delivered today. So far the spending for week 2 is coming in at £37.49. So I've still got a little bit left from my £45. Let me just do the math. Yeah, so I've got £7.51 left until the 14th of August, and I can't think of anything that I particularly need or want. So last week, in week 1, my total spend was actually a little bit more than I reported, because I did buy a couple more things after Coffee and Catch Up 13, including, you'll be glad to hear, I managed to find 4 bottles of baby lotion, and I bought those, and so the total spend for week 1 came to £27.63, and that included £10 cash that I've taken out just for emergency use, and I transferred the remaining £17.37 to my personal savings account, and that's what you might call a mid sort of month payment, or part way through the month payment to any savings account or sinking fund is called a snowflake payment. They sort of may not seem very significant at the time, but they do build up. So I made a snowflake payment of £17.37 to my personal savings at the end of week 1, and hopefully, unless anything goes amiss, I can make a £7.51 snowflake payment at the end of week 2. That's my update on my consumables spending for this week. I have already stabbed myself in the foot for week 3, and I will talk to you about that in next Monday's magazine compilation. Hello and welcome back again. It's Thursday morning now, and I'm just finishing up this video. I waited up last night until my supermarket payslip dropped, and I had a look at that, and there was an incredible surprise. The adjustment that has come through as a result of HMRC processing the P45 from my office job has made quite an amazing difference to my take-home pay. I was anticipating about £850 take-home, and it's come in slightly over £1,100, so that's absolutely fantastic. I'm really, really pleased. So I'll just go through that with you quickly now so that you know what I've brought in from my hard work, and then I'll tell you quickly how I've decided to allocate that this month. Okay, 1 minute, just let me get my spreadsheet. Okay, so my total payments for my supermarket job this month, and for those of you who are new or are just casually stopping by, I work 21.75 hours a week in a supermarket to supplement my 3 annuities, at least until I get my state pension in 2 years' time. So that job over the last 4 weeks has grossed me £1,309.49. Now, I have been paying tax on that at 20% up till now, because my accountant has now spoken directly to HMRC. The P45 from my office job has been applied, and the supermarket job is now the job to which my personal allowance is attached. So let's just see what I did. I did 80.5 hours of basic contracted work, basically, and that came in at £1,002.23. I then did 12.75 hours of overtime, and that came in at £158.74. I had a day's holiday. That was when I went to my college reunion, which I'll link the video up there, and the holiday pay for that was £89.38. I still can't get my head around how they work out the holiday pay. It's based on how much other work you've done in that 4-week period, so it can vary. And then I had an overtime correction of 4.75 hours, and that came in at £59.14. So my gross take-home pay was £1,309.49. Now my national insurance this month was £27.40. My pension contributions, and I contribute at the highest rate I can, which I think is 7%, were £78.57. And then my PAYE tax has literally gone down from something in the 300s down to £68.20. So my total deductions for the 4 weeks running up to today is £174.17. So that leaves me with a take-home pay of £1,135.32. And I am incredibly grateful for that. I'm absolutely flabbergasted, to be honest with you. I knew that the P45 being applied would make a difference, but I really didn't think it was going to make that much difference. And I will be very honest with you that I am so relieved, because I've had a very, very expensive couple of weeks. You know from recent videos that I bought a tipper load of firewood, and that was, I think, £585. That's still sat on my credit card. I topped that up with £74 something worth of wood from Home Bargains. So together that will take my firewood fund down to about £200. I've not paid that yet. I'm leaving it till the last minute because I want to get as much interest on that money in my saver account as possible. And then I went to have my eyes tested. I had no idea how much glasses cost these days. I paid £480 for a pair of glasses plus a backup pair at half price. That's including staff discount. And then there was the second pair as well, so that was £480. That literally will clean out my wellbeing fund. I will be in negative equity for that once I've paid for those glasses, and I'm not paying for them until I've had them delivered and I've tried them on and I'm happy with them. And I'm going to have to raid my emergency fund for that, and I will actually put some of this supermarket money towards it as well. And then on Tuesday I've had to take my car for its MOT test, and as I was expecting, it needed a new exhaust. It also needed an oil change and an oil filter. So all of that, along with the MOT, came to just over £500. Now I do have the money in my car maintenance fund for that, but again, that's going to severely deplete that. And the car has got to go back next week as well to have the power steering cable replaced, because that's leaking. And if that goes, the car is undrivable. So I'm waiting with bated breath for that bill, and I'm not taking the exhaust pipe and oil filter, oil and MOT bill out of my fund until I can take it all out together. Because every time I take money out of one of my sinking funds, I lose one of my 4 annual withdrawals. I have an annual withdrawal allowance, and if I go over that, then I lose my high interest. So I'm trying to save things up, do them all at once, and then hopefully keep my high interest rate as long as possible. So I've had some really big bills this week. The other thing that has happened, which I wasn't expecting to happen for 3 months, is that my son has suddenly decided to find himself a driving instructor, and he's done that, and it had to be bought as a package. So I've had to pay for that as well. And I had £700 of that saved up, but it did leave me about £200 and a bit short. Once I've cleared all that, which has come to a horrendous amount of money this week, I'm going to be, I'm not going to be skint, but I really am going to be a very low ebb with my sinking funds, and I am going to have to start working to build those back up again. I haven't even added up how much all that comes to. I don't honestly want to see it. I did see the total briefly on my credit card statement online this morning, and I thought, well, I'm not turning a blind eye. I know what it is and I know it can be cleared, but it is going to leave me severely depleted for a while, but that's fine. That's just the way it goes. And the only reason I'm sharing this with you is because I want you to experience with me the bumpy nature of the retirement journey and the challenges that I'm having to face. But it'll all be okay. Let's talk about happier things. Let's go back to that wonderful paycheck that I've just received from the supermarket. Now, what am I going to do with it? Well, very, very quick allocation today. Not like the longer allocations I had in the past. First of all, I'm going to put £800 in my buffer fund. Now, if you're new or you've missed it, I'll link my buffer fund video up there. There are two, actually. There's a buffer fund video, and then I talked about it a little bit more in Coffee and Catch Up 12, which I will link here. And basically the buffer fund is a bank account that I put my income into as the month progresses. And then when I get to the end of the month, I take my living allowance for the following month out of that and move it into my main account. So part of filling up that buffer fund each month is obviously from my supermarket salary. And this month I'm going to put £800 in. I'm going to then use £100 towards my glasses bill. I'm going to put another 150 towards the driving lesson fund, and then the remaining 85.32 I'm actually going to put into my personal savings and pretend that I never even saw that. That's going into a totally different bank account. It's tucked out of the way because I just don't really want to touch that. So once all that's done, I've just got to find another £62 for the driving lesson fund, and I'm hoping that will come out of my YouTube earnings for July. So that should be fine. So apart from the fact that I've had some rather large bills this week, but I mean some of them were expected, some of them weren't. Then, you know, apart from that, everything's fine, really. So there we are. I mean, it literally was in one hand and out the other, apart from £85.32 that's gone into my savings. But I'm just really, really grateful to have had that. I'm not quite sure how this is going to work going forward, though, with the supermarket pay. I have not had time to sit down and do a thorough mathematical investigation into how much of my personal allowance is left and what that might mean for my supermarket salary going forward. But hopefully it'll be okay. So anyway, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with this. But I'm really very happy about it. So yeah, there's been quite a lot of financial stuff going on this week. I'm hoping next week will be a little bit quieter on that front. Obviously, I've got things to pay off, but it's fine. It'll be fine. Absolutely fine. And yeah. Anyway, I need to sort out the back bedroom now because I've got a friend coming to stay for the weekend, and my London son's using that room as a bit of a storage space at the moment, so I just need to go and make that presentable for guests and remake the bed. And hopefully I'll see you on Saturday. If I don't, it's because I've got my friend visiting and there's not been any time to make a video, but I'm actually hoping that I might be able to put up something about my thoughts on living with a wood stove, hopefully, because that won't take too much editing, but we'll see. Anyway, thank you very much for coming along and facing my retirement challenges with me. Well, I've been in this sort of financial situation before and I've come out the other side, so hopefully I'll come out the other side of this one. I have managed to pick up some overtime next week. And I have spoken to the checkout manager about overtime, and he suggested that I train to work on the customer service desk. So I'm thinking about that. I'm not terribly happy about it because there's a lot of responsibilities that come with that. And to be honest with you, I'm past responsibilities of that nature. But we'll see what happens. I just need to take one thing at a time. Anyway, thanks for dropping by, and hopefully I'll see you on Saturday. And if for some reason I don't see you on Saturday, I'll see you on Monday for another sort of roundup of fun and interesting things that I've been doing. Okay then, I think it's probably time for the kitty fix, isn't it? Kitty. You are such a kitty. You don't do anything but sleep, do you? Not really. Oh, kitty cat. Okay, everybody, thank you for watching, and hopefully see you on Saturday. Bye for now.